She goes, have you ever thought about journaling? And my ironic answer was, I don't think that's my thing. I don't think I'm a real good writer or anything. And so she said, well, keep it as an idea. She said, it can be very cathartic, even if you type it, print it out, and throw it in the fire and burn it. At least you can kind of get it out. And I said, okay. And that idea I wrote down, and it literally sat on my side table for probably 8 months afterwards. I mean, I didn't touch it for the longest time. And then one day I was sitting on my couch on my laptop and I was having a really hard time. I was having an emotional moment, and I opened up a Word document, and in letter form, I put the date on there. Dear Zachary, and I just wrote in letter form. And the way I write is in the moment. And like, if I felt like in that moment I needed to have it F bombs in it and expletive laden because that's just the gut feeling I was feeling, that's how I wrote it. And now, granted, it wasn't all that, and I mean, it was a few here and there, but it was still to get the point across of what I was feeling in the moment. And so I did that for several weeks. And I'm a researcher. So after everything happened, I got on Facebook, and we all know that Facebook has a group for everything. I found a group that related to me, and I got to know the admin real well. And one day I asked her, I said, do you mind if I post some of my journal entries? She goes, no, we'd love for you to do it because we get so few men in here that are actually willing to open up. We'd love to see what your thought process is. And so I did. And almost immediately I got a massive response. It kind of surprised me, the response I got. And so, I did that, and then I posted another one. I got a similar response, and every time I would post, I get these just big responses. And I mean, I had some women go, we don't know each other, and I've never told anybody exactly how I feel or what's kind of in my gut of how this is just tearing me up. And she's just like, after reading your letter, you've exactly explained exactly how I feel, word for word. And I went, well, I appreciate it. This is inspired by my son. And I said, it means a lot that I can write something that resonates with you. And so that's how I did it for a while. And then I started getting people going, well, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And at that time I was just, I don't know if I have the brain space for that quite yet. I might down the road. And then people would say, well, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I said, yeah, that's kind of on the back burner. But at the time in which people were asking me, I didn't think I had enough material to even start a book, let alone produce a book. Now I probably do, but at that time I didn't. And then finally someone said out of the blue, they said, well, if you're not going to do those other two things, have you ever thought about like doing a Facebook page and making kind of a grief blog and all that? And I went, I could do that. I could at least copy and paste it. And so that's what I started doing. And, in the beginning, it was your typical, you'd make a page, you'd have just family and friends following. So it was about 10 or 20 people, that kind of thing. And just one day out of the blue, I went, you know what, I'm going to start reaching out to some of what I would consider some of the bigger names in the grief community and just ask them if they would be willing to give me pointers. And that's what I did. And I just said, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm trying to create this grief blog, trying to get it out to people I think it can help. Can you give me pointers? And literally all of them were like, yeah, what do you need help on? And I would say, well, this is what I'm thinking I'm going to do. And they would say, well, if you're ever going to do a book, you're going to need to build a website so you can, guide people to it. And, somewhere where you can sell it from, that kind of thing. If you're going to go this direction, you, want to do A, B, and C. And so I got a lot of tips like that. And so from that point, it really started growing. At one point I was getting like 100 followers a month, that kind of thing. It just seemed like it was just blowing up for me. And so fast forward to now, in just 9 months, I've got over 1,000 followers. I've got representation in 44 of the 50 U.S. states. And representation as of the other day, I think it's 24 countries in just 9 months. And so if you'd have told me in the beginning of this that I would have a page that would reach
it's
that
such a
far, I would have laughed
it
at you.
sounds like it's a
So,
selfless thing to do, right? Because a lot of us want to keep those feelings and emotions, and we almost
mm,
feel too vulnerable when we share it. And I was scrolling through, your Instagram page and your Facebook page, kind of in
mhm,
preparation for today, going through it, and some of the things that you're sharing are quite raw and
mm,
honest. And for
mhm,
especially men today, you know, we don't want to
mhm,
do that. And especially in the position that you're in, talk
mhm,
about some of it, because you mentioned journaling and you're like, hey, that's not really my thing. Like, talk about
mhm.
some of the thoughts, the self doubt that you had, like getting to the point where you were okay to share some of this.
Those of us in the grief community, we all get to the point, in the beginning we tend to almost verbally vomit on people just because we want to get it out. And then we start learning, like, because my kids were nonverbal, I got really good at reading body language. Like, I could read my son to a letter. He could just give me a look and I could tell what he was feeling, what he was doing, that kind of thing. And so in the beginning, when people would ask me, I would almost just like verbally vomit on them. But I started to learn that when I would tell some people, I could see in their eyes when they would say, well, how are you doing? I could tell that they were asking just because it's the polite thing to do. They didn't really want to know the ins and outs of it. They didn't want me to get in depth on it. They wanted to ask me enough so that they could fulfill a social requirement to feel good about themselves. That, hey, I asked him how he was doing, kind of thing. And then that's all they really wanted. And so, in the beginning, I wasn't sharing it just because it was my emotion. It was a lot of it, like a lot of men feel, it's, do I want to be vulnerable to people and risk? Now, I'll probably get a lot of good reaction, but there's also a risk that I may get a lot of bad reaction to it. And I said, with the state of mind that I'm in, can I handle someone coming up and saying something that I feel like is offensive to me? And, you know, well before my son passed away, one day I just got to this mindset of, instead of complaining about something, do something about it. And that was kind of when I finally decided to start posting it. It was one of those, well, this is cathartic to me. Hopefully, I can help other people. This is doing something about it. And if someone were to come back and make some ridiculous comment, I could say, well, at least I'm making an effort trying to be an example of what can be done. Am I perfect at it? No, no stretch of the imagination, but at least I'm doing something. I'm making an effort. And so that's kind of what got the ball rolling. The biggest thing was,
Hmm.
if I hadn't have gotten that initial reaction I did, we probably might not be talking. But because I got such the big reaction and people liked it so much, in my brain, I went, hey, maybe I have something here.